out of focus there. Um, what is up, y'all? Sparta here, and I guess for this video, what I want to do is I want to talk about, I guess, just put out a PSA or a message to the larger tech reviewers out there. And I know a lot of stand boys are going to come out and say, oh, but you're a smaller channel. You're not even at 1,000 subs yet. You can't talk about them. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. So, would you kindly have a Coke and a smile and shut your mouth for a second and let the big boys talk real quick? What I want to do is I want to talk camera sensors. And the main reason I want to talk about this is because tech reviewers are very hypocritical as to what they feel a smartphone sensor is capable of and what it can do, right? They claim they want the highest, the bestest, everything in the kitchen sink in terms of camera, but then they, but then they settle for an iPhone. And then but when a pixel has the exact same sized sensor, in terms of megapixels anyway, not in terms of the size of the pixels, but the amount of the megapixels, they don't care. Like, they will sit there and say, oh, but the Apple algorithm, oh, look at this, it looks so good, it looks automatically nice. Oh no, I don't have to think about what I do with my phone, what I do, how I compose a shot. You don't have to do that. I just have to put a doink here and look. It automatically puts bokeh behind it. It automatically does it. I don't have to think at all. And to me, it gets to the point where I feel a lot of these tech reviews used to be the same ones that would want more features in their phone, right? But now Samsung took out headphone jack. Maybe we don't need a headphone jack. Samsung took out the SD card. Maybe we don't need an SD card. They lowered the wattage of how fast their phones can charge. Maybe we don't need 45-watt charging. They're complacent when they want to be. And in terms of cameras, let me tell you this. A 12 megapixel sensor, you're not going to go wrong with it. One, it focuses faster than 108 megapixel sensors and 64 megapixel sensors and 48 megapixel sensors, because we've been using this technology for years now. We've been using the 12 megapixel sensor for years. So it's mastered, right? The dual pixel autofocusing system works very nice on these phones now, right? Whereas 108, like, look at Samsung. They literally have to put a laser autofocusing system on their phones, able to even get decent focusing, if that. And they still sit here and talk about, oh, but the juicy colors and the detail that you can't even really see in a compressed YouTube video or on an Instagram post or anywhere that you would want to post it so that people can see how nice it looks. Just taking a picture of a sunset ain't impressive, dog. Most phones can do that, and most phones can do that all phones can do that, and the vast majority of them can do it very well. Taking a picture of your drink on your coffee table, all phones can do that. Most phones can do it very well. Hell, I'll even say all of them can do it very well. It comes down to color science, and it comes down to the algorithms each of these manufacturers use to leverage the camera. LG has a whole bunch of manual settings and a whole bunch of different, their ThinQ AI and all this stuff, and they decide that they don't want to oversaturate an image so much. Their night shots, they don't want to make they don't want to have a night mode that turns night into day. They want a night mode that just brightens the scene up and makes it look at least natural. And to me, that's really good. And to you, that may not be really good. You may want a day into night into day kind of night mode. For me personally, that's just now I feel it mostly comes down to personal preference, right? And that's totally fine. But you really shouldn't be taking tech reviewers for their word. And making that as if it's the gospel that everyone has to follow in terms of what makes a good phone. 9 times out of 10, they say these things, but they still go to an iPhone. Like, and not even the newest iPhone. They probably are still rocking an 8 Plus, which again, I don't even think is bad, but it's just something that I do want to point out. They say these things, but then go to an older phone. They say they want the bestest out of a Pixel, but then they slam the Pixel 4 XL, then get mad when Google goes more mid-range, I guess, with the Pixel 5. They slam LG for not having a third camera sensor, but not looking at what the camera can actually do to where it doesn't really need that telephoto lens. They slam the OnePlus 8 Pro and they don't even use the camera. Like, they take 1 or 2 shots. Like, this is not as good as an iPhone because it doesn't look like the iPhone. Respectfully, fuck off. That's all I'm going to say about that. Because when it comes to a phone like the S20 FE here, 12 megapixel sensor, slightly larger pixels overall than the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which everyone tends to god over and say is the best camera out there. Let me tell you why it's not. For one, I don't even have to tell you. Just look up night photo comparison between LG V60 and iPhone 12 Pro Max, and you will see. I did it on this channel already. And apologies, you guys probably hear that plane or whatever. Apologies for that. But let me tell you, this camera, really good. Don't have any real issues with it. Other than like Samsung's post-processing and their color science and yada yada yada. But overall, it's fine. It gets the job done. It's really good, especially in manual mode. There are the issues that this phone has when it comes to SD cards and manual mode, or 4K 60 FPS video, but I'm not going to talk about that here. Overall, we've mastered the 12 megapixel sensor, so maybe more phones should have it if they think that they'll do that better. Google has a very good, they have their entire Google camera algorithm and all that stuff figured out. They know what people like with their HDR mode. They know what people like with all of that. But people want to focus on the specs when they decide it's convenient. And to me, that's stupid. Because you didn't care when Samsung took the headphone jack out and had mediocre audio. You didn't care when they took the SD card out but just put more storage in the phone. You didn't care about any of that. But you care when a company doesn't use a 108 megapixel camera that can barely focus well, for one. Like, phones that have it either have a laser autofocusing system or it's decent with its autofocusing. And don't act like focusing isn't this big deal. It's a very key part as to how well your photos look overall. If your photo is out of focus, then that's not a good photo, right? If your video is out of focus, it's not a good video. And I don't care how good the HDR colors are. If most of you can't compose a shot anyway, why do you think a 108 megapixel camera is going to make your photos better? I'm going to stop pulling my punches when I talk about this stuff because it just gets annoying to hear the same stuff over and over and over again. Then they backtrack and then they don't care when it's Apple because it's totally fine when Apple is complacent, but when Google is complacent, literally Android's iPhone, You make a big deal out of it. This isn't the way to go. Tech YouTubers, this is not the way to go. To say Sony needs to stop making smartphones because they don't make them for the average consumer. One, you don't dictate what's for the average consumer. You guys push $1,400 phones and say those are for average consumers when most average consumers are just buying in the $400 to $600 range. A Sony Xperia 1 Mark III, a Sony Xperia Pro is not for them. Like, Sony has mid-ranger phones. Their flagships aren't for the average consumer, whatever the hell that even is. So will you stop? Will you stop saying that and using that as a crutch and using that as an excuse to why someone should get a new Samsung phone every year that's having less and less features? Can you can you stop? Or do you have to get that little paycheck? Is that what you got to do? No, that's really sad. I used to look up to a lot of these people. I used to be inspired by a lot of these people. They've been the reason why I started this. they were some of the reasons why I started this. And sure, I'm not on a tripod right now. I do need to get that fixed. As you guys can see, it's out of focus. But why aren't you focusing? It's right there, right next to my swords, which I know is very weeaboo, but yeah. Overall, that's just what I want to say. I don't want to make this too much longer. Dear tech YouTubers, stop playing specs when it's convenient, because it just makes you look like a hypocrite at the end of the day. Have a good one.